Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is the ASX and Sectors weekly chart analysis for the week ending 4th of July 2025. The first chart is the S&P ASX 200 index. This is the parent index for the Australian Stock Exchange. Ticker code is XJO. You can see the market closed slightly higher this week. Here's the highs of the range as we've been marking them for some time now. You can see that buying support emerged down here previously. And after a couple of weeks consolidation, the market did push higher. Price then moved up to the highs of the range, drew out a little supply here, came back and consolidated in response. And this week the market's just popped up and issued a minor challenge to this level. This is a really serious price level here. This is effectively the major highs of the range. And a clear break and close above this level would be significant for the market. So it's done a little bit of work over a month down here, and it now appears that the market's well placed to issue a pretty serious challenge and move higher. You would expect this to produce a breakout bar here and not necessarily a grind higher. It could be the market could absorb its way higher, but at a really important level like this, I would expect at least some form of thrust higher, possibly with a retest from above to test the strength of the breakout prior to a complete breakout from there. That remains to be seen. We are at a very important level. The market spent 4 weeks preparing for a challenge to this level, and I expect that challenge will come pretty quickly, probably next week. We'll have to wait and see whether it's successful or not at this point, but that's how it appears. Next chart is the mid caps. This is the bottom 50 stocks in the ASX 100 index. And if we mark the same level, which are the highs of the range, you'll see this market did move above previously. It's come back. It's tested these highs for strength. And the market has responded this week and closed slightly above that bar's high. This market's slightly leading the parent index at the moment, and this does happen from time to time, but it's a good indication of underlying strength in the market overall. And same thing goes here. This market does look as though it's already tested the highs of the range for strength. It did find that strength confirmed, and I would expect this market will attempt to continue higher in response. This is the small ordinaries sector. The small ordinaries are the bottom 200 stocks in the ASX 300 index. Marking that same level again, you'll see the market did challenge this level previously, similar to the mid caps, but the poor close or the close below the mid bar suggests that there was some supply drawn out. The market did attempt to absorb that supply with an inside bar. There was a little pullback in response on increased volume, which was a little disconcerting at the time, but we saw buying support emerge the following week, and that made things look far more stable. This week, price has just pushed higher on pretty good volume with a relatively narrow spread. So there may be some uncertainty still in this market, and this week price has pushed higher with a relatively narrow spread on good volume though. So it's genuine trading. I expect this market will attempt to push higher in response, possibly following the parent index and the mid caps. If they start pushing higher, I expect that will give the impetus for this market to continue higher alongside it. Next chart is the financial sector. Easily the largest sector in the Australian Stock Exchange by some way. Here's that same level that I've been marking, and you can see this market did push clearly above the previous highs of the range and is up into fresh air above. The market has pushed higher. It spent a couple of weeks in consolidation mode before attempting to continue higher here. The close off that week's high suggests there was some supply being drawn out, although the volume was reduced and below the average, So what supply was drawn out could have only been modest. Perhaps this market felt as though it was getting a little bit further ahead of itself than it needed to be at the time. Anyway, this week, price has pulled back within the range of that previous bar in consolidation mode. You can see that it pulled back right back to that level there where the market pushed higher and came back in consolidation mode. This is the market attempting to absorb any supply that's been drawn out in response to this potential breakout. This is a serious level, and the market's just absorbing any supply that's been drawn out in response. Next chart is the ASX metals and mining subsector, and you can see here is the highs of the range in this chart. Buying support was found back here. Price pushed higher in response and up to the highs of the range where a period of consolidation's taken place. The market's pulled back 3 weeks ago, found support, pushed higher in response. This looks suspiciously like a 3-week shakeout, just below this highs of the range level. At this point, it's unconfirmed. A push higher in response would confirm it. There may be a brief and shallow period of consolidation adjacent to this bar if trading conditions aren't favourable right now. This market looks well placed to make an attempt to push higher and break out above these levels. This is the ASX gold sector. It does trade with the commodity quite strongly. You've had some weakness up here come in, and then buying support come in response. Very similar to the underlying commodity. The market pulled back more recently in response to the weakness that's been drawn out. This week's consolidation bar, attempting to consolidate just above these previous lows that have been established in the background. Volume was pretty strong. This wasn't an attempt for the market to push higher. This was the market absorbing the supply being drawn out right down here at the lows of the range. So if this is successful and gold moves higher overall, you'll expect this market to push higher. If weakness was to continue and price broke down, you're probably pulling back to this level down here where this gap is. But it doesn't look particularly weak at the moment. It looks like the market is consolidating at this important price level in preparation for a push higher in response. This is the ASX energy sector. We saw the buying support come in down here initially on pretty good volume, and after a couple of weeks consolidation, the market pushed higher. Another week's consolidation, and price pushed up to this level, trading adjacent to the consolidation in the background. There was a little period of consolidation there, and then another push higher. Back further, we have this little period here of congestion in the background. The market's pushed up to that. It's respected this line here, the highs of that range. Prices pulled back within the previous bar's range. And this week there's a consolidation bar in response. This is the market absorbing supply just below this important price level to the left in preparation for a push back up to the highs of the range and probably issue a challenge to it following that. This is the healthcare sector. A little buying support came in here, which we noted at the time when price closed off its low. There was a couple of weeks consolidation down here as well before the market pushed up. It's been trading within this range for some time now, appearing to be in consolidation mode, and the market's pushed up to the highs of the range this week. You've got this level here above. So it's like a complex level. Here's the highs, here's the breakdown line. You could even mark it there if you chose. So you can see this is a complex level. The market's doing quite a bit of work down here, trying to absorb as much supply as possible, which will, if successful, clear a path higher and allow the market to push up with relative ease. The next level above, up here, will likely contain some supply as well, but there is a little bit of room if the market can get through this complex level above before it reaches that level up there. So the market's been in consolidation mode. It's pushed up to the highs of the range. It's now well placed to issue a challenge to this complex resistance level above. And it's probably going to take a little bit of work. A level like this generally doesn't see the market thrust straight through it. It generally sees the market grind through it over a period more like this. You see the market move through in a grinding fashion, generally using some form of bullish absorption. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on it. This is the industrial sector. This has been quite a strong market for some time. Back down here is where we initially saw the market break out. The price pushed up in response. It moved up, went through a period of consolidation, attempted to move higher, and then tested the initial breakout for strength before price did push higher through here. Now, following this bar, some weakness emerged here. I expect there was some profit taking through here, and prices come back in response. Buying support came in on this bar, as it did across most of the local market. And after a little period of consolidation, price did push higher again. If you note here, the thrust higher really did start to shorten. Here was your initial thrust, here was the next thrust, and the next one failed. That bar there on this high volume saw supply drawn out and the market's come back in response. Now, whether this is some more profit taking, we'll have to wait and see. It does appear that it may be. This week is an attempt to consolidate. Volume was genuine, pretty good, about average. The close was below mid-bar. Here's the important level for the downside through there. If that level was to be broken to the downside, you probably see price come back to here, probably here initially, but there's more safety in there. We'll just have to see how this market contends with the supply that's been drawn out. There was supply drawn out on this bar. This is the response to it. And now the market's attempting to hold on and consolidate. We'll just see how the market contends with that supply as it's been drawn out. When supply was drawn out previously, back here, the market pulled back quite deeply and then spent 7 weeks in consolidation mode before it pushed higher again. So we'll just see how the market contends with that supply that's been drawn out. This is the ASX consumer staples sector, and price did see selling pressure ease back here, and that allowed the market to move higher in response, and it pushed right up to the highs of the range. It did miss those highs of the range there, which was actually a little bit of a sign of weakness in hindsight. Price pulled back in response, and there was an attempt to consolidate through here. The market broke down again last week, and this week it's attempted to recover but failed at the breakdown line. That suggests this market at best is going to go sideways. If the overall market does push higher, I expect any recovery in this market would be subdued. It wouldn't push higher like this. It would more push higher like this. The lack of ability to recover this week is suggesting that this market isn't as strong as some of the other sectors. This is the ASX consumer discretionary, and you can see the strong buying support that emerged back down here. And following some consolidation, price did push higher. You've had a period of absorption taking place through here. The market has moved above the highs of all these bars this week in quite a strong move. Here's the highs of the range. So you can see where this week's bar has pushed above this bar's high, which was effectively the highs of the recent range. Here's the highs of the overall range. The market's pushed up to that this week, and it'll probably be well placed to push higher in response. If the overall market pushes higher, this market may just accelerate higher like this. If the overall market does spend a little bit of time in consolidation mode, you might find this market does this for a little bit before there's an attempt to push higher. This is the ASX property sector. Similar story, buying support came in down here. Couple of weeks consolidation. Price accelerated higher. There was a period of absorption through here. There was probably quite a bit of supply to the left being drawn out, which the market had to absorb its way through. Here's the highs to that range. You've got some further supply above that up here. The market's pushed up to this important level this week and closed adjacent to this bar's high. Remembering that this is the highs of that minor range through there. You can see the market pushed above that, attempted to consolidate, pulled back, which is effectively testing the strength of that breakout line. And the market's responded positively this week, pushed back above those highs and into this zone above, and has closed adjacent to the initial breakout bar's high up here. So that's a pretty good move. You may find the market does come back and test this level for strength prior to a push higher, or it may just push higher. We'll have to wait and see. But the market has made a good challenge to this line, an initial challenge, a pullback to test the market for strength. Strength has been found and the market recovered this week, which is a good move. Just back to the parent index quickly. Now we've been through all the sectors. You can see this is the important level here. This is the major highs of the range. A clean break and close above this level would be significant for this market. You would see the market really pushing higher and into fresh new air above. It's a significant level. A month's work has already been done absorbing supply just below or around that level in preparation. That should be clearing a path higher in response. So resistance shouldn't be too strong, and that should allow the market to really thrust higher. There may be a test of the breakout for strength, or there may not. We'll just have to wait and see. But the market is well placed now to thrust higher and effectively break out above the major highs of the range, which is significant. Okay, thanks for your time. Back again next week. See ya.